So the second part of the sentence is actually what we want you to look at there. It's just simply the prefix occurring in an first plural inclusive S context. So will go, including you. I should mention in passing that often South Central participant marking systems have a dual plural distinction that's involved. But for this language, that's not the case. There's no dual category marked. So 6 shows you a second person, so straightforward second person singular S. So not marking the verb there, navakinga. In 7, you've got actually more marking than just what we want you to focus on now. So the na raw o part is the one that you should focus on. It's actually pronounced na ra u. Why the orthography spells that as o, we're uncertain, but it's less pronounced o. So in this context, second plural S, you've got both a second person marker preceding, and then you've got this postverbal u, which indicates plurality. So third singular S is illustrated in number 8. So again, just at the very end of the sentence, the E part, so she returned. And finally, number 9, third plural S. So in this particular example, there's no marker. So I mentioned in conjunction with the third plural and third singular S marking, you sometimes have the marker like you see in number 8, but sometimes it's absent, like in this case with the third plural S situations in both of the clauses in the sentence. But the verb nevertheless has the ha plural marker occurring after it. So that's how it's interpreted as third plural S. P marking is a little more complicated. So the markers that you see here aren't exclusively P markers. So you'll see the K and the N elements involved in the first person acting on second person and the second person acting on first person forms. But here we have a marker A, which apparently indicates a speech act participant P, which is not the speech act participant, which is otherwise indicated in the prefixal morphology, right? So if we broke down the first person on second person marker K, in this context, the K would be indicating that there's a first person A participant, and the ash is indicating that there is some other speech act participant who is not the A, and that leaves the second person participant. So that's why it's second person. For the second person acting on first person, there's an N piece which indicates that the A participant is second person, and the ash indicates that there's another speech act participant, which is the P in this context. And since the A is already the second person, that leaves the first person. In the case of third person acting on second person, you've just got the ash. So you've got zero marking of the A participant, and there is some other speech act participant. And in this case, it's exclusively the second person participant, because there is another marker, the nasalized high back unrounded vowel prefix, which specifically marks third person acting on first person. So a little bit more complicated than the S marking. So the formative here is actually one of the more interesting things about the system here. So there are this isn't an inverse marker per se, but there are inverse marking systems in the South Central languages, participant marking systems. But this isn't quite one of those, but it's nevertheless an interesting kind of marker that languages don't typically have. So some illustration of a few of these things. I'm actually not 5 minutes left. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time. We can't look at all of these. I do want to talk about the tone a little bit. So, so first singular A acting on second singular P. The second line of number 11, the catchy part says, that's the part which corresponds in the gloss to I told you not to, sorry, I told you, and then what precedes it is I don't tell or don't say it. So it's simply the I told you part, or I said to you part. In 12, we've got a first plural exclusive A on acting on a second singular P. And again, this is a ka prefix indicating first person acting on second person. So this is again the parents talking to their daughter in that same text, saying, "We will tightly, we will embrace you," or something like that. Let's see. The third plural inclusive A, that was actually an earlier thing. Let's skip over that. Actually, we're lost my place there. So 14 has actually two pieces. And let me actually skip over a bunch of these examples. We're never going to be able to talk about all of them. In 14, we've got the na marker, right? So second person acting on first person. So in this particular context, so some guys, Mithuns, have killed the Mithuns of this other person, and the person whose Mithuns were killed is saying, "You will give me all of your Mithuns." Nasaha Marua Napuachi. So the Napuachi, you will give me, right? So that's that second person marker. This particular example also shows the marker. So it's a little more complicated here because the first person participant is the malefactive, so it's put into the P role by the malefactive use of the bua marker, which is lost mal there. So this says basically my father, the person that he's talking to, your Mithuns have killed, and it's understood from the context, my Mithuns, right? So on me, right, basically. So that's what the is doing there. Let's see, in 15, 16, and 17, these are basically instances where, as I said, the S marking does double duty as the A marking, and you don't need any special marker for the P participant because third person singular P and third person plural P are unmarked, basically. So these are identical to the S markers for second singular A, second and second plural A. So second singular A in 15 and 16, and second plural A in 17. And then there's another example of the marker, which we already illustrated in the earlier discussion in 18. So this one's actually simpler. So he said to me, so unchi bua. And then looks like I've got 1 minute left. So I'll skip ahead to talk a little bit about the tonal morphology. In 23 and 24, these are very impressionistic because we don't have a full analysis of what's going on with the tonal system yet. But in the 23 examples, you've got the difference between the two forms in the A set, the B set, the C set, and there's only one form in the D set because the difference is neutralized there. The difference is whether you have a singular A or a plural A. So far we recognize 4 classes of verbs. So there are rising tone verbs like follow, there are falling tone verbs like listen to, there are high level tone verbs like chase, and then there are check tones like see. And if you look at the resulting tones from putting on an a prefix, which either corresponds to third singular A or corresponds to first plural inclusive, in the case of the first plural inclusive A's, you end up with a high level tone on the verb stem throughout. And there's also an effect in, let's see, a couple of these. Well, no, actually in all three of A, B, and C on the prefix as well. So it's a slightly higher tone. So the point here, plurality of the A appears to have an associated high tone. And this is actually neutralized in the case of the check tone verbs like to see. See. Now, I won't go through it in detail, but there's a similar sort of pattern in the verbs in 24. The difference here has to do with the plurality of the P participant. So the first form in each pair is with a singular P participant, and the second ones are with a plural P participant. So the prefix in both cases is ung, so segmentally the same thing. But again, where the P participant is plural in these cases, there appears to be an associated high tone, and it induces a high level tone on all of these different verb types. And in the case of the rising tone and the checked tone, it also has higher tone associated with the prefix. And this is interesting because, so again here, plurality is associated with a high tone, and this seems to be the same thing that Samson Latvan has called the plural high tone in his work with Zotung, verbal tonology, and in a recent paper that he has on South Central tonal systems more generally. So this plural high tone, it seems to be what would account for what's going on here, but you'll have to wait for future versions of the full system. So I think I'm about out of time. As I said, there are some things to say about diachrony here. You can ask me about if nothing else occurs to you to ask me. But I guess we want to just conclude by saying that one of the things that drives our research is the question of Zotung's relationship within Morayic. And our hope is that through consideration of participant marking and other aspects of the verbal complexes in these languages, we'll be able to more precisely identify its position and actually, to identify the position of Morayic itself within South Central. So I'll stop there. I'm out of time. I left a couple minutes. So, yeah.